Korra found refuge in the swamp with Toph, who discovered there was still metal poison in her body.
I always think, like, isn't it weird that there's literally poison in her body and all it's been really doing is slowing her down, not killing her? But lately it makes me think about all the microplastics in my own body, and you know what? Let's stop talking about this. I don't like thinking about that. Looks like there's a greenhouse on Air Temple Island. Makes perfect sense. On the girls' side of the island, by the looks of the rooftops. We see it briefly in this fight from Season 1, but I never actually clocked what it actually was, I guess. In this scene, we see this other building from the greenhouse's perspective, so surely this meme will become an all-time classic in the community.
Mom, we'll be fine. Grandpa Aang and his friends were around our age when they traveled the world.
How old are you now? You're like 10 or 11? Yeah, I guess ballpark it, close enough. And they're probably more well-equipped, being 3 airbenders and all.
Were you able to get a read on Korra yet?
No, but once we're further out, I'll be able to hone in on her spiritual energy.
I just adore how this shit works. The rules are extremely strict until they're, quote, further out, and then she can hone in on Korra's energy no matter where she is in the world. It's like light pollution, but for spirits. There's just too many people around, maybe? Yeah, sure, man. Just make sure you're not cramped up when you do it, because that turns it off, too. You ever think about how Tensen really inherited Aang's big-ass ears?
Pepper. Yip yip.
Someday an Avatar animal companion is going to have 1 or 3 syllables in their name and break a decades-long tradition, and you fucking reprobates won't even notice. What, Fang? You're gonna count Fang? Fine, but other than that...
Finally! I've been holding my pee for an hour!
Comedy's really sharp this season. Anyone else think that?
If you get through to Kora, tell her I said hi. Do you feel anything yet? What's taking so long?
You know what? After this time skip, Iki's kinda cool. She's kinda spitting.
Enough chit-chat. You can hold the picture of Kora I drew.
Wow! I didn't know you could draw.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but I do always tend to like the joke of a character just being really, really crazy at some skill that's just never come up before. That being said, I think this might be the first joke in this show that even really gets a smirk out of me in over a season now. So positive on that end, but you know, not great overall.
Have you seen this woman?
Well, aren't you an adorable little thing?
I'm Milo. What should I call you other than beautiful?
Man, where'd this come from out of Milo? He's genetically predisposed to suck at talking to women from both sides of his family. And last time we saw him try, it went like this.
You're pretty. Can I have some of your hair? Janor, Iki, it's Kora.
Where?
It's just a photo of Kora.
Really? No love for the picture of Granddad? Kids these days. Also, I guess this is kind of just like Korra's signature photo look.
Then where did she go?
Oh, I don't know, but she wasn't looking too good.
Iki, this is all your fault.
Yeah, fuck you, Iki. It's a cool touch that Aang had his first vision of Toph here in this swamp before he met her, and then of course Korra, his reincarnation, meets her here to learn from her as well.
I know. Tell me the story about how you taught Aang to earthbend.
What's there to tell? I threw some rocks at the Avatar, he got all whiny, and Sokka fell in a hole.
Oh, I should have said that in Underanalyzing Book 2.
What about the time you guys took down the Fire Lord? That must have been epic!
Oh, yeah. It was hot. I was on a blimp, and I think a giant turtle showed up. Wow, what a day.
Though I do like Toph's dismissive attitude, it would kind of be nice to have her gush about that one, maybe a little bit. There's also a pretty noticeable non-zero relationship to Star Wars here. Our protagonist goes to a giant swamp to be trained by this wise old little green gremlin thing. I get it, it's not lost on me.
Hey, where's all the food Mom gave us?
I threw it in the river.
You did what?
I know what this episode is trying to do primarily, which is endear these kids to us more than they've ever been. And I gotta give it to the episode for the characters that I've mostly just outright dismissed for the entire show, just due to the fact that they have no impact and are usually used as a joke. Joke 1, gross young boy humor, and joke 2, hyper squealing young girl humor. This episode does kind of do a good job of what it sets out to do. Milo's annoying still, but it's more entertaining than usual, and Iki's still immature, but she plays off of both of her siblings well. It's just really a shame we're getting this effort put into them now, in the 10th last episode of the show. It's like, we're basically out of time here, guys, so why are we making this push?
Hey, keep it down! I'm trying to meditate.
They keep doing this, but couldn't Janora just, like, fuck off a mile from here and just meditate there, then come back? Hit the road if you want some quiet, sister.
From now on, we hunt for our meals.
Milo, we're vegetarians. We don't hunt!
Could you imagine being a vegetarian just because your grandfather was? And it's not even like a cultural thing as far as you can tell. Forget that, man. Let me eat that thing. Sugar glider, which is a real animal, by the way, if you don't know, just a regular run-of-the-mill one.
Hey, does this mean we're friends?
I would also be friends with something that shares my physiology and is 10 times the size of me.
Hold it right there.
Pretty crazy new form of the immobilizing rock move. This one seems to even reach up and grab her as it's sort of malleable and stretchy, which is certainly something we've never seen Earth do before. There's a map over here on this wall, but it's hard to tell what it is. Could just be a local map or the Earth Kingdom state they're in, but I can't find one on Kuvir's map that really matches it, so I'm not sure. These visions are pretty gnarly compared to the ones we saw back in Airbender. All of those basically just placed a person in the swamp that wasn't actually there, and Hugh says, yeah, that's what the swamp does. But here, I guess, is a combination of Korra's mental state and the mystical swamp. She's transported to different places and shown her most glaring failures. I'd say it still works. Cool little editing trick here. As we watch former Korra thrashing around, we end the cut with her head hanging down in front of her, so her next violent reaction would naturally be to fling her head back upward. But we use that motion to actually transition back to the real Korra instead, as she does it. Nice. I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be, but we see what looks like an airbender symbol here, maybe, but with only 2 nodes in the circle rather than 3. Wonder where this imagery and statue comes from.
I hope you're hungry because we found some... We found some berries.
Milo collects these purple berries, which are probably the same berries Katara used to, you know, lightly poison Aang's pet and lifelong friend.
So, where have you looked for her?
We've been traveling down the west coast.
Iki playing along with being restrained is sort of a callback to Aang in this moment. Milo, the prodigy genius that he is, actually pushes the fight system forward and fakes the over-the-top cartwheel kick before doing a different move. Why doesn't this guy have his tattoos? Jinora, for some reason, finds it pertinent to throw a curved wind blast so these two guys can be knocked out in this cute little Mako and Korra pose. Is it just me, or would you not be out in the magic swamp after seeing all that shit? Not to mention a demonic version of yourself is lurking around trying to kill you? Bullfrog.
I know you want to get better. And so does the swamp. It can sense you're out of balance. It'll teach you what you need to learn. If you're open to listening.
Toph preaches to listen to the swamp, or in other words, listen to the earth, which is the thing Aang was told to look for in a teacher. Cool to see Toph basically say to do this, but in a different way. It's also interesting to see that Toph is kinda up on this stuff in her old age, considering Toph doesn't get to interact with any spirit stuff in the first show. She misses the Seeds of the North, she stays outside when the gang meets Wan Chi Tong, the painted lady only shows up for 10 seconds, closest thing she gets is standing next to Aang when he meditates. But here, Toph is in the mystical swamp and seems to be totally at home. Really makes it seem like she's had her own visions and had to deal with them as well.
What did Amon want?
How do you know about Amon? Haven't you been missing, chilling here in this swamp for years and years at this point? How do you know about any of this? Even if I give you the fact that you can see stuff happening all over the world, there's no way you know what's going on politically, or like people's names.
Zahir believed in freedom.
And Zahir believed in freedom is maybe the most reductive, brain-dead statement I've ever heard. Like, sure, I believe in freedom too, Toph, but that wasn't really the heart of his beliefs in any reasonable way. Toph's point is that all of the villains Korra has faced, their goals have been based on some level of agreeable rhetoric. Except Unalaq, that guy was fucking crazy. But like everyone can agree with wanting equality and freedom for all, those villains wanted good things but went about them in horrible, terrible ways. Toph's wisdom here feels half-baked to me. Anyone can say, hey, those are good things to want, but that doesn't make the people who wanted them any better when their actions were so monstrous, especially when they're such universal things that basically everyone can agree on that they're good. You think we'll ever get an explanation for why that tornado showed up and hunted the gang down over the swamp that one time?
There is an enormous amount of spiritual activity here, but I don't feel Korra.
Jinora not being able to feel Korra's unique presence is explained a couple episodes ago.
I was hurt pretty bad a while ago and lost touch with my avatar spirit.
No wonder I couldn't feel Rava's energy.
If Korra's so spiritually out of whack, I suppose it checks out she wouldn't be noticeable as herself. Now I know what you're thinking. Haha, overanalyzing Avatar, you're a fraud. You said last episode we don't get to see the swamp benders, but here they are, bending the vines. But nope, we still never see them. So I guess they just did this to mess with them and ran off? Very odd behavior. Or it's another unexplainable attack sent by the swamp itself because they need to be here right now. And the swamp knows that. Just gotta wait for a frame where it's only Milo. Wouldn't want the other two to get caught in the crossfire.
The roots of the Banyan Grove tree spread out for miles in every direction.
The Banyan Grove tree is the same tree where Hugh had his chat with a gang, and where he reached enlightenment, as he puts it. There's also a pretty good chance that the Banyan Grove tree is somehow the physical world's equivalent to the Tree of Time. Maybe connected in some way. It seems to produce what we now know as spirit vines, which are tied to both Vaatu and the Tree of Time itself, it seems. So these two trees being connected makes sense to me.
Your problem is you've been disconnected for too long. Disconnected from the people who love you, and disconnected from yourself.
Toph being the one that teaches Korra this lesson plays back into her own arc from Airbender, which we'll run down again quickly. Toph's arc was going from this gruff, I can do it all myself kind of person, not needing help, to realizing that there's nothing wrong with needing help and accepting it, all the way to even asking for help when she needs it. It's a much lower key arc than most of the others, but for a character like Toph, who was already so competent and confident when she enters the show, I think it's a very effective one. Korra mirrors Toph here in this way. Korra has never needed to ask for help in her entire life. She's been incredibly capable up until this point and has refused help since basically she's had the option to do so. But here, she asks and accepts help from Toph, just like Toph had to do in her youth. Korra, just like Aang, seems to just get how to use the spiritual GPS that the Banyan Grove tree grants to the Avatar. A lot of people tend to forget that moment.
How did you find me all the way out here?
Janora sensed your energy.
But we never would have been here if it weren't for Iki.
I never would have stormed off and found those soldiers if it weren't for Milo.
Will you two quit congratulating each other and help me out?
Wait a minute. Cranky? Old? Blind? You must be Toph!
Oh, I like this one.
There is a first time for everything. That sugar glider's still hanging around, not really sure why.
I'm ready.
I'm not bending it out of you. You gotta do this on your own.
And I think this still works nicely with Toph, because Korra's battle is so much more internal than Toph's ever was. It's good that Korra got help, but when it comes down to it, it's on you sometimes, and you gotta do it. And sometimes you don't need help doing a thing, but sometimes you need help getting to the point where you feel like you're enough to do something on your own. And those are two very different things. Korra has lost the power in herself to feel like she's enough, and that's what Toph has been trying to help her with. So Toph stepping aside and making her be in charge of fixing herself is poignant, and I think it's a great lesson.
That fight is over. Release the fear.
And there's a bigger talk to be had about things in your past controlling your present and being dragged down by them, but I think Zahir will be a better moment to talk about that in. I'm not sure how I like the idea that the Avatar state was literally actually being blocked by the metal being in her body, but really this moment is more used for a fake-out kinda cool scene in a later episode, so I'm on two minds on both its logic and utility in the story.
I'd like to give you a hug now, if that's okay with you.
All right. You earned it.
I think it might have been a nice moment if Toph still denied being hugged, but then slugged Korra in the arm afterwards.
That's how I show affection.
Well, this one, overall, is certainly an episode in Season 4 of The Legend of Korra. Can't take that away from it for even a second. It's just, there's not really a whole lot going on in this episode. It really kind of feels like two B-plots got put into the same episode. Korra working on herself and trying to feel better certainly should be the A-plot, but it's given less screen time, and basically right up until the end, it's not moved forward in any meaningful way. It's mostly Korra just moping around, being dismissed by Toph. The vision scene had potential, but that really didn't end up going anywhere. It was just more of a visual treat to see the old villains again. And then there's B-plot 2 with the Airbender kids, and that's mostly just a succession of scenes that aren't meaningfully tied together in any way for the first half of it. It just seems like moments that would be brief cutaways in any other episode, until finally Iki gets captured and they kind of figure out what they're doing. But even then, entire scenes go by and I just honestly don't have anything to say. There's just so little substance to the episode in a pretty unique way for this franchise. Don't get me wrong, there's good in here, but there's so little of it compared to how long the episode seems to drag on. If it didn't end with the kids meeting Korra and her getting the metal out of her body, it would likely be categorized as filler. Patreon shoutouts, if you want to see the next 2 episodes of Overanalyzing Korra ahead of the YouTube releases, you can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons, a sack of pancakes who has been changing their name to fuck with me, and the mouth really doesn't pronounce pancakes the way I want it to. Anthony Collins, who has a biological countermeasure to the cold. Anytime he shivers, he shoots flames out of his eyes. Jacob Glickman, who much like the mighty buffalo, used to range most of the Americas. Unfortunately, he's the only one left of his kind. Lewis Williams, who won a bar fight once by using a pool cue as a bow staff. Liquor Cause I Know Her, who accidentally did a shot of nitroglycerin once, and I've never seen a man flip so many park benches. Knights by Satire, who can teleport wherever they want by diving through a window and coming out of another window. They have to be closed though, and 2 window replacements to teleport can get pretty pricey. Omega Fighter, who can summon jars by swearing, and yes, that is where the idea came from. Tater of Tots, who I saw vomit up a 1/8 scale of Michelangelo's David after drinking a soda and eating Pop Rocks at the same time. And that one Turian who can download Blue by Eiffel 65 onto any device just by touching it, even like your fridge. And of course, my other fuck you money patrons, Blanco, Cameron Lowry, Gene Cree, LM the RMT, Matthew Lang, Potato Scream, The Former Meaning of Life, The 1AM Party, Whitrow, and Wow Dude 87. And my god overanalyzers, 2 Boots Are Beat, Aang, Alan Garvin, Andrew Watchford, Onzio Ruiz, Oropataro, Axolotl Syndicate, Blade Dancer, Carlo Wren, Chandler Crump, Cosmic Newbie, Derek Chapman, Dr. Xerox, Dominic Saint, Emma on Emma, Aaron Grace, Fire Lizard 4 44, I'm a Match, Jackson, Jeremy Rubenstein, JCare4215, John Ajaka, Justin Scott, Mac, Mason Garman, Medium D Speaks, Michael Fellon, Mitchell Gobrecht, Nick, Nicholas Abbott, Peter Bayron, Pogger White, Rocket Miss, Ryan Maxwell, St. Charlie, Scoobert, Shane Antonacci, Silk Toe, Smarty Marty, Princess Useless Backwards, Super Snipper, That Blind Ginger, Totoro Bobro's Musical Emporium. Next up, Varric tries.